My husband became a vegetable after a car accident, and my mother-in-law would rather let him die than spend money to save him. Heartbroken for my husband, I borrowed money from all my maternal relatives, exhausted all my assets, and even took out high-interest loans to get him treated, and finally managed to save his life. The first thing he did after waking up was to ask for a divorce, saying that since he had already died once, he didn't want to suppress himself anymore and wanted to pursue true love. Only then did I find out that the reason for the car accident was that he was buying a Valentine's Day gift to please his mistress. If I could do it all over again, I called my mother-in-law, and she said, "I have no money, he's your husband. If he dies, you'll be a widow. Just stay faithful to his memory." Holding the phone mid-call, I said to the doctor, "We're out of money, remove the breathing tube. We've discussed it and decided not to continue treatment. Are you Yang Wei's family? This is Jiangyi Hospital. He's been in a serious car accident and is currently undergoing emergency treatment here. Please come to the hospital immediately. A family member needs to sign for the rescue procedures." When I opened my eyes again, time had rewound to the day my husband had the car accident, the very moment I received the call from the hospital. In my previous life, the hospital called me, and I rushed there without even having time to tie my shoelaces. After 2 days of emergency treatment following the car accident, the doctors declared brain death. Continuing the rescue efforts would mean facing enormous medical expenses. The best possible outcome would be becoming a vegetable, maintaining vital signs, and waiting for a miracle to happen. In such a situation, no one could stand by and watch their loved one die right in front of them and choose to do nothing. I didn't hesitate to choose to continue the rescue efforts, and I used all the money I had to save him. Obviously, the little money I had was like a drop in the bucket. Yang Wei is a mama's boy. The house we live in is under his mother's name, and he gives most of his monthly income to her. I begged his mother to use the money to save him. After all, there are numerous cases of people waking up from a vegetative state. Money is never more important than a person. I never expected the outcome. My mother-in-law actually said, "Where would an old person like me get money? He's your husband, not mine. If you want to save him, you save him. I have no money to give, only my life to offer." I never imagined she would say something like that. They always say there are no bad parents in the world. What's more, Yang Wei is such a mama's boy. He listens to her in everything. How could she bear to let him die? I thought she was just saying it, as it turned out. My mother-in-law truly meant what she said about not getting involved. She simply pretended to be sick, staying at home every day stewing pigeons to recuperate, not even bothering to go to the hospital. My heart sank at that moment. I felt it was so unfair to Yang Wei. His own mother, whom he loved the most, would rather let him die than part with her money to save him. At the time, I had no idea he was keeping a mistress outside. Nor did I know that the car accident happened while he was on his way to buy a Chishi festival gift for her. So, seeing that my mother-in-law only cared about the money and not whether he lived or died, I was overwhelmed with sorrow. I grieved for a long time, and then I exhausted all my savings to save him. When I didn't have enough money, I swallowed my pride and borrowed from my parents and relatives on my side of the family, and I even took out high-interest loans. After all, in the face of life and death, everything else is trivial. I'll borrow first, and when he wakes up, he can go get the money he left with his mother. If it's still not enough, we'll work together to earn and pay it back. I believe that as long as we're still alive, we can always earn the money back. I go to the hospital every day on time to bring him nutritious rice porridge, massage his body according to the doctor's advice, and chat with him, hoping he will wake up soon. My efforts paid off. After taking care of him for half a year, Yang Wei miraculously woke up, and I was overjoyed. But the first thing he did after waking up was to ask for a divorce. I felt as if struck by lightning and was completely stunned, thinking he must have been confused after just waking up. In the end, he said that after experiencing a life-and-death situation, he realized that life is short and he no longer wanted to suppress his feelings or live a lukewarm life with me. He wanted to bravely pursue true love. I never expected that giving my all to save him would become what he described as a lukewarm life. I couldn't accept this sudden blow, but I still held on to hope for him. comforting myself by thinking he was just recovering from a serious illness and his harsh words were due to a bad mood, but I never imagined that he would start becoming violent toward me. After slapping me once, the domestic abuse became endless. And he even brazenly brought his mistress into our home. It finally dawned on me that he had been involved with the other woman for a long time. The car accident happened because the other woman was angry that he hadn't decisively filed for divorce. He was driving while trying to console her and buy her gifts, got distracted, and crashed into a truck. Unable to bear the humiliation, I agreed to the divorce. During the divorce, he promised to repay the money I had borrowed to save his life. But after the divorce, he suddenly turned hostile, saying the money was borrowed by me, so of course I should repay it myself. He even said he never asked me to save him, so why should he have to pay it back? Why should he have to repay so much debt? I borrowed all that money without his consent. It wasn't until that moment that I realized he had tampered with the divorce agreement, taking advantage of how emotionally distraught and desperate I was to get a divorce because of his affair. I overlooked the details when reviewing the agreement. He set several traps for me, and I just walked right into them. I never imagined that a person could be so shameless, especially towards his wife who once saved his life. Such a huge debt that saved his life was suddenly thrust upon my shoulders. And Yong Wei is such a mama's boy. The house we lived in was under his mother's name, and the majority of his monthly salary went to her. After the divorce, I didn't get a single cent. And I simply couldn't afford to repay the debt I was burdened with. Relatives, however, immediately came to demand money as soon as they found out I had gotten divorced. Some of the money was even borrowed with the help of my parents, and those relatives kept pestering my mom and dad relentlessly. Every day, a crowd of people would come to our house, causing a scene and demanding repayment. My mother has a heart condition and was hospitalized several times due to the stress. My father, unable to hold his head up in front of the relatives, became extremely irritable. Once, unable to contain my anger, I impulsively grabbed a knife and went to attack Yong Wei. I didn't manage to hurt him, but instead, I was arrested by the police and detained for 15 days. Our family was torn apart and thrown into complete chaos. I was powerless to change the situation, crying every day, suffering from severe depression. Less than a year after the divorce, I jumped from a building and ended my life. Meanwhile, Yong Wei, who suffered from infertility, married his pregnant mistress and they had a lovely son together. My mother-in-law was overjoyed, and the whole family stepped on the soaked in my blood, living happily together. Perhaps their actions were too excessive, and even heaven couldn't stand it anymore, giving me a chance to be reborn. So when I received the call, I didn't rush to the hospital immediately. Instead, I gave the doctor my mother-in-law's phone number. I cried and said I was out of town and on my way to the hospital, asking my mother-in-law to go first and sign the papers. I won't pay a single penny for this in my entire life. After hanging up the hospital's call, I immediately called my mother-in-law. She cried and scolded me. "Your husband is in a car accident and is being resuscitated, and you're still away on a business trip. I'll go sign first so the doctors can start treatment right away. You hurry back and pay. I don't have any money on me." You could tell my mother-in-law was very nervous, and there was even the sound of a table falling over. She was worried about her son's life, but she was just counting on me to be the sucker and pay the money. In my previous life, because I was in a hurry to get to the hospital right away, I didn't notice these details. "Mom, you pay first, and I'll have Yong Wei give you the money later. All my bank cards are with Yong Wei, and I don't have any money on me," she cried, and I cried too. It's just crying. Who doesn't know how? If she wants me to pay, no way. I searched high and low, gathering all the bank cards from home and putting them in my bag for safekeeping. Then, in tears, I went to the police and traffic police, retrieved the dashcam footage of Yong Wei's car accident, made a copy, and then used my ID to get Yong Wei's damaged phone back from the police. I took it to a phone repair shop before rushing to the hospital with red eyes. He had already been in emergency treatment for over 3 hours. I wasn't there, and my mother-in-law had already paid 1 round of fees. He had been sent to the ICU, and my mother-in-law was still waiting at the door. As soon as she saw me, she slapped me across the face and said, "Your husband is in trouble." and you show up so late. What kind of wife are you? Let me tell you, if anything happens to a Y, I won't let you off." After a lifetime, I've grown accustomed to her habit of casually blaming me. I didn't say anything and just let her scold me. Arguing back would only make her more excited. Compared to the domestic violence in my previous life, this slap was nothing. Seeing that I didn't argue back, my mother-in-law breathed a sigh of relief and said with a stern face, "You stay here and take care of our Wei. I'm going home first. I just paid 10,000 yuan, which should be enough for today. When our Wei wakes up, remember to return the 10,000 yuan to me." "Mom, our Wei's life is hanging by a thread right now. How can you still be thinking about him paying you back? My mind is a complete mess right now. Our Wei keeps his own money, and I don't even know where he put it. I admit I did it on purpose. I deliberately cried and complained so loudly, so that the doctors and nurses in the hospital could hear, letting everyone know that it was his mother who was clinging to the money and unwilling to save him, not me." Gossip and cyberbullying. I had enough of that in my last life. I don't want to go through it again in this one. Over the years, our Wei's salary has basically been handed over to you, while my salary has been used for our small family's expenses. So, Mom, how about you return our Wei's salary to him to cover his medical bills? And I'll use my salary to take care of him. Our Wei's condition is so serious this time. He definitely needs proper nourishment and won't recover without several months of rest. I'll personally take care of him then. His money can go toward treatment, and my money will cover our daily expenses." "Mom, what do you think?" Relatives of patients had gathered at the hospital entrance. These people loved nothing more than drama. As soon as they heard what I said, everyone turned to look at my mother-in-law. Some even started muttering, "In this day and age, even after the son is married, he still has to hand over his money. How is this child supposed to get by? This poor girl, she even has to support her husband after getting married. No wonder girls nowadays don't want to get married." The mother-in-law was so angry that smoke was practically coming out of her head. "What do you all know? I raised my son since he was little, and now that he's grown up, what's wrong with him giving his salary to his mother to manage? This is called knowing how to be grateful. What are you all blabbering about?" The mother-in-law grumbled, saying they were all jealous of her son's filial piety because they couldn't give birth to sons themselves, then stormed off with a dark expression. She was absolutely certain that as long as I was around, I would definitely save her son. I didn't talk back either, just stood there quietly. Anyway, since he's staying in the ICU, family members aren't allowed to accompany patients inside. They won't declare brain death and confirm the vegetative state until tomorrow. The doctor comforted me with a few words, telling me to go back and rest first. They said they'd call the family if anything happened, and just to keep my phone available at all times. After leaving the hospital, I took my husband's phone and compiled all the call records between him and his mistress. As for this affair partner, I actually know her. It's his colleague Su Fang. From the explicit chat records between the two, it appears that Su Fang was already 1 month pregnant at this point. I still have her on WeChat. In my previous life, when Yong Wei was hospitalized, she even visited him in the hospital on behalf of the company. Like a fool, I thought this colleague was reliable. She still doesn't know that I'm aware of their affair, treating me like a fool to save the father of her child. I quickly took a photo of Yong Wei, covered in tubes from the ICU yesterday, and posted it on my Moments with the caption, "Don't worry, I'll convince my mother-in-law to use your money to save you. You will definitely recover. Hang in there, honey." The post was only visible to Su Fang and my mother-in-law. I wanted them to see my determination to save Yong Wei, so they would continue to refuse to pay. The next day, I went to the hospital early and waited. I arrived even before the hospital called me, because I knew that guy was about to suffer brain death. Sure enough, not long after I arrived, the ICU doctor on duty rushed out in a hurry. The situation was critical. He needed immediate surgery to save his life, and there was no guarantee he would make it, just like what happened in my previous life. The doctor spoke with me privately. I cried and said, "No matter what, we have to save him. Could you give me a few hours to come up with the money? My husband's money is all with my mother-in-law. I'll discuss it with her, and as soon as she sends the money, we'll pay the emergency fees right away." After saying that, I called my mother-in-law right in front of them, but she hung up on me directly. Then I used the hospital's landline to call my mother-in-law again, and she answered immediately. Before I could even speak, her anxious voice came through from the other end of the line. "Doctor, how is my son doing now? He's going to be okay, right? Our Wei is already brain dead. The hospital is asking for the family's opinion. If you want to proceed with resuscitation, you need to pay the emergency fees immediately. Mom, please bring Yang Lin's money to the hospital to save him." I interrupted her, sobbing uncontrollably. I was standing at the hospital's nurse station while making the call, surrounded by a group of doctors and nurses, as well as patients passing by. A few of them had already discreetly started recording videos with their phones. When my mother-in-law on the other end of the phone heard that I was at the hospital, she visibly breathed a sigh of relief. She knows me too well and was sure that I wouldn't abandon Yang Lin in such a situation. And indeed, that was the case. In my past life, I was trapped in this very way, ultimately pushing myself to the brink, just as expected. "Yushin, what do you mean by that? You're still so young, and you already want to rely on your parents. Yong Wei is your husband, not mine. It's you, his wife, who should be selling off everything and borrowing money to save him, not me, an elderly person with no ability to work. If you don't have money, go borrow some. You're still young. Are you afraid you won't be able to pay it back?" As soon as I asked her to send money, she blew up and started acting like a shrew. Although I couldn't put the call on speaker, if it comes to a lawsuit, all the call recordings can be retrieved as evidence. I've suffered enough in my past life. It's their turn now. "Mom, are you saying that you won't use the money Awei left with you to pay for his treatment? Where would an old person like me get money? Let me tell you, I have no money to give, but I do have my life. If anything happens to Awei, I'll die with him. You can just wait to become a widow and mourn him. Widow, when he dies, I'll find myself 8 or 10 boyfriends, turning his grave into a lush green prairie. As for staying a widow, he can keep dreaming." "All right, I understand," rubbing my reddened eyes. I kept the call connected and sobbed as I cried out to the doctor. "Doctor, my mother-in-law said we don't have the money anymore, so we've decided not to continue the rescue efforts. We've agreed. Just remove the breathing tube. To send him off properly, I requested permission from the doctor to personally go into the ICU and remove the breathing tube, accompanying him on his final journey. 2. Sign here." When the doctor pushed the signing form in front of me, I hung up the phone and quickly signed my name, agreeing to discontinue treatment. I followed the doctor into the ICU and personally removed, one by one, the tubes inserted into Yang Wei's body. I coldly watched the numbers on Yang Wei's heart monitor drop to 0. The thrill of revenge drowned out the fears of my past life. From then on, there were no more demons in this world. I knew my mother-in-law was rushing to the hospital, but it was too late. I even deliberately took a photo of Yang Wei with the tube removed and sent it to her on WeChat. "You wouldn't give up the money, and now your son is driven to death. Are you satisfied now? Holding on to his money and refusing to save him, even as a ghost, he will never forgive you." After sending the message, the entire process was complete. I sat slumped quietly outside the ICU, listening as the doctor declared Yang Wei dead and covered him with a white sheet. "Who told you to pull out the tube?" Just as they were taking the body to the morgue, the mother-in-law rushed over in a rage. Unfortunately, she was a step too late. The moment she saw the body, the mother-in-law's face turned deathly pale. She was completely stunned. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. She stood there in a daze for a full 3 minutes before throwing herself onto the dead Yang Wei, clutching him and breaking down into loud, heart-wrenching sobs. "My son, how could you die? How could you leave your mother all alone in this world?" After crying, she suddenly rushed over to hit me with a fierce expression. I dodged with a quick sidestep. "Yushin, you actually gave up on resuscitating my son. This is murder. Now that he's dead, you owe me my son. You owe me." My mother-in-law was acting like a shrew, making a scene and causing a commotion. "Was it me who gave up? Mom, wasn't it you who gave up? I called you right in front of the doctors and nurses. When I called, dozens of people were watching. Clearly, you were the one who gave up. You said you had no money and only your life to offer, that if Yang Wei died, You would die with him. Leaving me a widow to mourn alone. It was you who held on to the money and refused to save him, causing his death and making me a widow. Why don't you go die with him? Give me back my husband. Give me back my husband. What a joke. I made call after call and even sent her a WeChat message. Waiting for this exact moment. Isn't it just throwing a tantrum? If she throws a tantrum, I'll throw one too. Fight magic with magic. In my past life, I was just too concerned with saving face. Which is why I let their family walk all over me. Crying, I took out my phone and played the WeChat messages I had sent to my mother-in-law complaining about her refusal to save my husband, along with the call recordings, for all the surrounding patients' families, doctors, and nurses to hear. Mom, are you satisfied now? I cried until I was hoarse, tears streaming down my face, and my mother-in-law's face turned even paler. She thought she could control me. Convinced that even if she didn't contribute a single cent, I would still do everything in my power to save Yong Wei. In my previous life, she was the one who kept urging me to borrow money from my maternal relatives, saying she had already tried all the relatives on the Yang family's side and no one would lend to her. In this life, even when we argue, she never forgets to remind me to sell everything we have and borrow from my maternal family. She schemed and calculated everything. But she never expected that I would suddenly change the game. You. My mother-in-law couldn't utter a single word for a long time, and for a while, she couldn't even catch her breath. Mom, all the money Yong Wei has earned over the years is with you. Now that he's in trouble, you won't give a single cent. If Yong Wei finds out, he won't let you off even as a ghost. You killed my husband, and I will never let this go in this lifetime. After saying that, there was no time to waste. I still have many things to handle. For instance, there are still some assets between Yong Wei and me, as well as compensation from the insurance company, and even the money Yong Wei spent on his mistress. All of these need to be carefully sorted out. I made an appointment with a lawyer and left directly, of course. I wouldn't bother with Yong Wei's funeral arrangements either. Mourning for that kind of man would only make me feel disgusted with myself. After returning home, I had the renovation company remove all the previous furniture and even demolished all the fixed renovations that couldn't be taken away. The house isn't mine, but all the renovations inside were paid for by my parents. Why should anyone else benefit from them? After I finished, I went back to my parents' home. My parents didn't understand why I was acting this way. Logically, since Yong Wei had died, I should be grieving. But I seemed completely unaffected and was actually quite happy. I couldn't explain much more. So I directly said that Yong Wei had cheated and that he had gotten into the accident while buying a gift for his mistress. I didn't say anything else, just asked them to trust me, as I'm not an ungrateful person. As soon as my parents heard that Yong Wei had cheated, they were so angry they wanted to seek justice and supported me without hesitation. Even in the previous life, when the Yang family and relatives pushed me to the brink of despair, they never once scolded me. Yong Wei was only one of the culprits. There were also my mother-in-law and the other woman. I won't let a single one of them get away. The next day, my mother-in-law went crazy and kept calling me non-stop. It was only after dozens of calls that I leisurely picked up the phone. You Shin. You bitch, are you dead? Why aren't you answering the phone? A sharp, piercing scream came from the other end of the phone, her mother-in-law's voice. It's your son who's dead, and you're the one who caused it. Have you forgotten so quickly? You. Her mother-in-law was so furious she could spit blood. Where are all the things from the house? Why is the house smashed up? Did you do this? That was mine and Yong Wei's home. Now that Yong Wei is dead because of you. Why would I leave anything behind to benefit you, the murderer? How I choose to deal with it is my freedom. The house is under my name, so it's my home. What does it have to do with you? You need to understand that I was the one who let you live there out of charity before. How dare you damage my home? Mother Wang spoke with righteous indignation. I was so angry that I laughed. It's true that the house was fully paid for by my mother-in-law. But at least half of that money came from the wages Yong Wei handed over to her during the time we were dating. Of course, Yong Wei and I never got married. So his money has nothing to do with me. However, because my mother-in-law bought this house, she claimed she had no money left and refused to provide a bride price. I am the only daughter of my parents, and they have always doted on me since I was little. They didn't want any unpleasantness over the bride price. So not only did they agree not to ask for one, but they also offered to help us with the renovation costs. At that time, my mother-in-law repeatedly assured us that this house was meant for me and Yong Wei. She said she was just the name on the property deed, but the right to use it was entirely ours. We could live in it, rent it out, or even sell it as we wished. It's also my fault for being naive back then and being so devoted to Yong Wei. I fell right into the trap set by that unscrupulous mother and son. I took a deep breath and tried hard to control my emotions. Getting angry over such a person and ending up like this is not worth it. I don't even care about the house. You can keep living in it until you die, I said coldly. Given my mother-in-law's temperament, there's no way I could get even a fraction of this house, so I don't want to waste time fighting over it, holding on to those cold, lifeless assets with no one to care for you in old age and no one to inherit them is the greatest tragedy in life. You're cursing me, my mother-in-law asked me agitatedly. I ignored her and continued, but the renovation of the house was paid for by my family, and all the appliances and furniture inside were bought by my family. Shouldn't I take them when I move out? You Shin, you wretched woman, have you no conscience? I paid for the house so you could live in it. And now that something has happened to my son, you turn your back on us. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? I'm not afraid. After all, it's not me who would be struck by lightning. Someone has already faced retribution, haven't they? I retorted sarcastically. What did you say? Are you cursing my son's death as retribution? Shouldn't you know very well, it was you who caused his death. I'm telling you, you Shin, since my son is dead. Don't think you'll have it easy either. The mother-in-law abruptly hung up the phone. I looked at my phone and let out a cold laugh. Who's afraid of who? I'm still afraid of you. Don't push your luck. That afternoon, my dad and my mom were sitting in the living room watching TV when their expressions suddenly changed. They enjoy watching the mediation segment on our local channel called Sister Fan Helps Out, which is undoubtedly all about domestic disputes. Shin, come here quickly. My mom called out to me nervously. I was also in the living room, sending a message to the insurance company on my phone, inquiring about the compensation for Yong Wei's car accident. Since Yong Wei was primarily at fault, the compensation wouldn't be very high. Hearing my mom's voice at that moment, I looked up and immediately saw my mother-in-law on the TV screen. She is being interviewed by a journalist. In the lower left corner of the screen, a news headline is displayed. After their son's car accident, the daughter-in-law not only refused to save him but also destroyed the home. My son was in a car accident the day before yesterday. My daughter-in-law was afraid of spending money and directly gave up on saving him, causing my son to die in the hospital. Now, she's completely ignoring my son's funeral. I truly have no other choice, which is why I've come to you for help. The mother-in-law spoke while crying, presenting herself as a pitiful old lady, which indeed evoked sympathy. Why didn't she come? Is it because of guilt and self-blame? Sister Fan asked. No, the mother-in-law said tearfully. As soon as my son had an accident, she wanted the house. I worked my whole life and used my life savings to buy it for them in full. The house is under my name. Because I didn't agree to give it to her, she immediately turned her back on us, moved all the furniture and appliances out of the house, and even vandalized it. The more the mother-in-law spoke, the more heartbroken she became, and she burst into loud sobs. Sister Fan comforted her for a few moments and then asked, "What is it that you want us to help you with today?" I hope to have my daughter-in-law handle my son's funeral and restore the home's renovation, returning the furniture and appliances to me. Alright, let's contact your daughter-in-law first. As Aunt Fan spoke, she took out her phone, and shortly after, my phone rang. At the same time, my parents' phones also started ringing simultaneously. My parents each answered the phone. My mom, "That's not how it happened. How could our Shinshin do such a thing? This is slander." My dad, "Don't you know what kind of person Shinshin is? You know exactly what you've done. If you keep making trouble like this, don't blame me for not showing respect to the deceased and embarrassing you in front of the entire nation." My dad was absolutely furious. But his personal integrity prevented him from tearing into a deceased person in front of the media. Obviously, my mother-in-law's action has already created a social impact. It goes without saying that my reputation is completely ruined now. I felt a wave of irony inside. In my previous life, because of the debt, the Yang family ruined my reputation and destroyed my family. In this life, Yang Wei is already dead, and you still want to cyberbully me, to make me repeat the same mistakes. It's hilarious. She really thinks I have no preparation at all. Next, it's time for her to truly understand what it means that evil will be repaid with evil. So, after the program team made 2 phone calls, I answered, Hello Yusin. We are from the Aunt Fan Help program, your mother-in-law. I saw the live broadcast on TV. I'm heading to Yang Wei's Memorial Hall right now. With that, I hung up the phone directly. Making trouble, who doesn't know how to do that? I put down my phone. Went to the room to pack my things, and then prepared to go out. Don't worry, I can handle it, I reassured them. I'll go with you. What if you get taken advantage of going alone? My father simply couldn't feel at ease with me going by myself. The program crew will be there too. I won't be at a disadvantage. Just wait in front of the TV and watch the news. I didn't want them to worry about me like they did in my previous life. I opened the door to my home. Several neighbors were blocking the doorway. When they saw me come out, they quickly moved away. As they moved away, several neighbors were still blocking the doorway. When they saw me come out, they quickly walked away. As they walked away, a few gossipy old women muttered a few words. That's the wicked daughter-in-law, no dowry. I heard this family is educated. So how did they end up with such an ill-mannered person? This is what they call a refined scoundrel. I was furious. My parents are just too reasonable, which is why the shameless Yang family has them completely under their thumb. I'm not wasting time arguing now anyway. The truth will come out soon enough. I took a taxi and arrived at my destination. There were quite a few people in the morning hall, probably hearing that a TV program crew was coming. Besides relatives and friends, there were also many onlookers. As soon as I walked in, the entire hall erupted. Yushin, you actually had the nerve to come. If it weren't for you, Yang Wei wouldn't have died. If it weren't for mother-in-law finding you through the program crew, would you have been so heartless as to not even see Yang Wei off on his final journey? Yang Wei and his mother have been so good to you. You've been married to Yang Wei for over 3 years without having a child. And he never once looked down on you. How dare you turn your back and show no gratitude? All of Yang's relatives were chattering away, scolding me. In truth, the Yang family and their relatives weren't particularly close. Yang's father had passed away early, and his mother had a strange temper and a scheming mind. She never took care of her own parents-in-law, and the Yang family couldn't stand her. Today, probably because the production crew was present and out of respect for the deceased, everyone wanted to take the opportunity to show off their so-called sympathy and sense of justice. Some were even there to see Yang's mother get her comeuppance. After all, she herself doesn't support her in-laws, and now her daughter-in-law is also opposing her. Like mother, like daughter, it's instant karma. I glanced at Yang Wei's coffin and then saw his mistress, his colleague Su Fang, who gave me a vicious look before quickly lowering her head. Currently, no one knows about her and Yang Wei's illicit relationship, which must be kept secret. She attended the funeral under the guise of being a company colleague. I can never forget how, in my previous life, she stood arrogantly in our home, calling me a hen that doesn't lay eggs and accusing me of occupying a position without contributing. I have been married to Yang Wei for 3 years, and we truly don't have children, but it's not because of me, it's due to Yang Wei's oligospermia, which makes it very difficult to conceive. The doctor suggested IVF, but the cost is high, and my mother-in-law is unwilling. Moreover, she heard from somewhere that children conceived through IVF are not as good, and besides, the doctor said it's very difficult, not impossible, so my mother-in-law suggested we try to conceive naturally first and wait until we're older to consider other options. Later, someone did get pregnant, but it wasn't me, it was Su Fang. I still remember clearly that after Su Fang got pregnant, my mother-in-law's arrogant attitude, saying her son had no issues, it was just that some fields weren't fertile. The more I think about it, the more ironic it becomes. Slap. I slapped her right in front of everyone. Su Fang was stunned by my slap. At this moment in the morning hall, many of Yang Wei's colleagues were also shocked by my actions. Why did you hit her? My mother-in-law stood in front of Su Fang and asked me angrily. Yang Wei is a mama's boy who tells his mother everything. So his mother must have known long ago that he had other women outside. She even supported it, saying it's normal for a man to have women outside, and if he could even get a woman pregnant, that would be a great ability for a man. So what if I hit her? I sneered coldly. Do I need to pick a special day to beat up a mistress? What nonsense are you talking? My mother-in-law was unusually agitated. My son is already dead, and you're still slandering him like this. Yu Xin, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Who says I'm slandering him? He was my husband, and he loved me very much. It was this seductress who seduced him and caused his death. I pulled the mother-in-law blocking Su Fang aside and pointed a trembling finger at her, looking utterly heartbroken. I knew all too well that tearing into a deceased person at a funeral would do me no good. In Chinese culture, the deceased is held in the highest regard, a principle as unshakable as the belief that filial piety is the foremost of all virtues. So, to turn the situation around, I, already notorious, had no choice but to target the other woman. Not only would I go after her, but I also had to portray myself as a naive, love-struck fool. This would make the audience frustrated with my lack of resolve, and the more they felt that way, the more they would dig into our story. A man's affair is something that can't withstand scrutiny, especially when the mistress is already pregnant. It's all because of this mistress who seduced my husband. I checked the car's dashcam footage. It was her asking my husband for gifts. It was because she threw a tantrum while my husband was driving that he got distracted and caused the accident. You're the one who killed my husband. As I spoke, I started clinging to Yang Wei's coffin, wailing loudly, Husband, how can my life be so bitter? I've become a widow at such a young age. The mistress caused you to have the accident, and your mother took your salary but didn't save you. When I see them, I wish I could skin them and drink their blood. After saying that, I seemed to go crazy again, pulled out my phone, brought it close to the camera, and scrolled through the WeChat chat history between my mother-in-law and me for the camera to see. Without a doubt, it's clear how explosive this record will be and the huge reaction it will cause. After pulling up the chat history, I also placed the video from the car's dashcam, which I had exported to my phone. In front of the camera, crying my heart out, I said, Look, it's this mistress who killed him. She clearly knew he was about to drive, yet she still threw a tantrum, causing him to get into a car accident. You, this mistress, are a murderer. I'm going to sue you in court and make you pay with your life. Paying with her life is impossible, but stripping her of everything is very real. My husband was so good to you, buying you gifts and getting into a car accident. Over the years, he must have given you plenty of money. When he needed emergency care after the accident, you actually refused to use the money to save him, just stood by and watched him die. You, this murderer, still have the nerve to come to his funeral. What? Hearing that Yang Wei had the accident because of an argument with Su Fang, my mother-in-law trembled all over, staring at her in disbelief. Is what she said true? The evidence is irrefutable. I shoved the dashcam video in front of my mother-in-law, forcing her to watch it over and over until she lost control. Her mind snapped, and she rushed forward and slapped Su Fang. You vixen, why did you have to kill my son? That slap of hers sent the live broadcast program into a frenzy. The relatives who were there for the drama finally got the spectacle they wanted and began to condemn the mother-in-law for failing to control her son, allowing the vixen to cause his death. The next day, mother-in-law encouraged son to cheat. Ended up with mistress causing son's death. After son's car accident, daughter-in-law not only refused to save him but also smashed the house. Follow-up. After encouraging son to cheat and mistress causing son's death, she was even invited to the funeral. Daughter-in-law smashed the house and refused to attend the funeral. This follow-up directly shocked netizens, with many saying, I would have smashed it too. Why save such a scumbag? It would be more satisfying to just pull the plug and take a photo for keepsake. Others said that those who criticize the wife are probably mistresses themselves. Meanwhile, I have formally submitted all evidence to Su Fang, demanding that she return all the marital property that belonged to me and Yang Wei, because I repaired Yang Wei's phone, all the call records, WeChat records, and various online banking transaction records are clear and unambiguous. Su Fang lost the lawsuit and was ordered to return 320,000 yuan of our marital property. However, she had already spent all the money and had no means to repay it, just like in my previous life. I hired a group of local thugs to press for the debt every day, armed with the court's judgment notice. Ever since she found out that Su Fang was the one who caused Yang Wei's fatal car accident, her mother-in-law has been looking at Su Fang with utter disdain. However, because Su Fang is pregnant with Yang Wei's child, she hasn't made things difficult for her. She wants to hold her grandchild, so for the time being, she hasn't troubled her and has even reached a private agreement with Su Fang. They are just waiting for the child to be born, then hand the child over to her to raise, and let Su Fang go and marry someone else. The grandson is her only hope, so every time I went to ask for money, my stubborn mother-in-law blocked me, throwing tantrums and rolling on the ground. Even local thugs wouldn't dare to lay a hand on an old lady. Collecting the debt has become difficult, using my money to support your mistress and her child. What were you thinking, since Su Fang refuses to pay? I have no choice but to take extreme measures. I made 200 copies of the court summons, investigated Su Fang's hometown, and hired 10 people to go there making a scene, beating gongs, drums, and distributing the summons. Su Fang's hometown is in the countryside, and her parents are honest, hard-working farmers. People in the village care deeply about their reputation, so with all the drum beating and leaflet distribution, the entire village found out, too ashamed to even show their faces. The elderly couple rushed directly to the apartment Yang Wei had rented for Su Fang, brandishing kitchen knives. Su Fang was so terrified that she started having abdominal pain and bleeding. By the time she was taken to the hospital, the baby was already lost, and she couldn't even save her uterus. As soon as my mother-in-law saw that the only descendant she had been longing for was gone, she was so enraged that she grabbed the kitchen knife from Su Fang's parents and attacked me. I could have dodged it, but I didn't. The knife sliced deeply into my shoulder, staining it with blood, and I was rushed to the emergency room for treatment. For committing such a violent act openly in the hospital reported it to the police, and my mother-in-law was immediately arrested. He was eventually arrested for attempted murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison. A man nearly 60 years old, sentenced to 30 years. His retirement years will be spent in prison. Su Fang's parents scraped together money, borrowing from relatives far and wide, to repay the court-ordered compensation to me, then took Su Fang back to the countryside. After my mother-in-law was arrested, I sold everything of value in the house and took the money back home to be with my parents. In my previous life, they worried themselves sick for me. In this life, I will stay away from all scumbags and spend quality time with my parents, enjoying the happiness of family life.